Now not only I will need to wait when I will be able to get it, but also when the next science adventure entry gets released. Because, as you can see, I finished Untitled code. Okay, that was wrong pronunciation. And what I read, and enjoyable fun. So that means I like it. At first, I wasn't sure how to review it without spoiling the main things of it, but turns out it is spoiled in the store description. So I guess I'll share it now. The player is someone else than the main character of the game, so it's a meta game, and whatever it's called. Well, maybe I guess the fourth wall breaking game, maybe. So the player can involve themselves in the story when it is allowed. Well, with characters acknowledging you. And with that, excluding game overs, which are called conclusions, decision novel, is a linear story, well, which makes it closer to be a kinetic novel. But even then I needed to consult a guide, but more about it later in the video. And of course I used the community of Zero Fan patch, and I think I applied the full patch, but there are still translations that I didn't like. Like when in Japanese audio name is said, it isn't said in English text. Like Pro is said in English when a character name is said in Japanese audio. Or a different name is said, like last name in one language, but in the other, its first name is said. Words or terms abbreviated when it seemed it wasn't the case in Japanese audio. Doesn't those Japanese artifacts few words in one language while sentence or more in other? I only noticed one instance, but I forgot if English sentence or more or vice versa. Different words are said between audio and the text when it is said in the same language. Like in Japanese audio, characters talk in English, but in the text dialogue, different English words are said. And of course, this is a weird science adventure entry with English stuff, but I chose to play it with Japanese original dub, like with original audio. And the full patch was supposed to be for when playing with Japanese audio, but I still noticed it. With little to non-Japanese knowledge, some inconsistencies in translation. The part the whole patch was for when playing with English stuff. And okay, that was wrong pronunciation. Unhoused code was developed by Mages and G. Maru Studio and published by Mage only in Japan and by Spike Sunshot globally. The story starts with a flash forward where Bolon Takaoka with a girl is fleeing shoulders and managed to do it because Bolon predicted the future. Then the story goes back before that happened, where Bolon is doing his hacker job with Cross and the member in the hacker group. What do you think? After some time he meets with a girl who was in the flash forward, and then back to what the flash forward showed, but with different events happening where only Bolon escaped, but are. Then he finds out that he can load a save file, and with that it returns to events what flash forward showed. And because of its ability to save and load with the player's help, and Grill asks to save the vault by finding someone, and by doing some arcane jumps which make involve people slash. Yes, the story is interesting and enjoyable, of course, with both ups and downs, and well, there's little to none elements from previous and chapter entries in the story. Well, at least a race level elements, which will be easy, very easy to notice. But even with it, at least it is recommended to play anonymous code outside previous science adventure entries, which make implies the same thing happening to previous entries, but those happen not. Yeah, I don't know how to say it differently without spoiling anonymous code story. Then again, previous entries ended about it. And yeah, I guess I spoiled the save and loading thing, but that's how the player can make choices. But the player needs to do the right things at the right time, like opening the loading screen for Poland at the right time so he can load to one of the save files, or keeps the story moving without making Poland to load a save file. Doing wrong things will lead to game over, which are valid conclusions by this visual novel, like I said before. And that's why I said it is a linear story, but even with that, I still needed to consult a guide. Well, only from chapter 8. Like from that chapter it was difficult to figure out the right timing, because there isn't a signal when it's the right time to interact, to choose to do the right action. Well, signal is only from attacks, but when it seems to be the right timing, then it is too really. And so of course I continued to consult a guide for future choice for Poland's saving and loading menu. Also, it doesn't help when the skip function doesn't stop at arcane triggers. The name for opening loading menu for Poland. To choose either to make Poland to load a save file or not. But as you can see, it didn't lower my enjoyment of the visual novel by a lot. If enjoyment was lowered a little bit. And this visual novel shows or visuals the story with 3 methods. Methods are the right word to use here. Of course, there is visual novel storytelling with adventure, sprays, animated visual cut animations, except at least some mount animations. Some of those are weird, or maybe some mounts look weird without any animations. Then there are cutscenes, which are only early in the visual novel, not counting opening, moving, and credits. And lastly, coming panels. Interesting take for a visual novel. And of course only in visual novel style the player can influence the story.
そもそも大犯罪者ならのんきにこの辺りに潜伏してるかな。顔認証が一致したっぽ。あら。
When exiting the game, a different window shows up which is in Japanese. So either the patch reset it to Japanese or it wasn't translated to English in the first place. Voice audio gets cut off when skipping the tail, not with the skip function, but making all of the text into like a bird. And once voice audio gets cut off. Now for this visual novel you might not need to change voice audio as a start of the game to add voice audio, because there is a setting which is on by default, which lowers background audio full when each character speaks, and only it talks which entry to it, then I can it may not be the right solution. So, well, developers acknowledge that they can the phone mix the audio 8-rate forms. However, in some instances it still is hard to eat versus generators. But mostly in those cases generators are supposed to speak in low form or mumble. There is a minigame, a life game or game of life. Call it a life game or game of life or whatever it is called. Well, the story is set in the future, then there is augmented reality technology. So also the player can see the AR visualization, but when the player wants to see the AR background by editing the output, also the AR background gets setting. So there are a lot of array elements on the script which aren't seen just by the player but also the generator. And with that, like background image without error, it might not else like, for example, in early game, when the image shows scrolls, but then it's facing different direction, but when I closing that array image then shows up, those scrolls are meant but facing the bond or the camera, something like that. So in some instances that aren't non-error image or background image represented before without the area element or something like that. Why not? Speaking of the voucher, it shows problems with automouse against where the driving aspect is compared and or having remote controls can make the vehicle crash remotely while the vehicle was moving. In some visuals, the facial expression doesn't match the tone. For example, what happened before flash forward, before Polon loaded a file. Instead of using an additional, now Fortune is used as a form. I'm not sure if it was called Fortune in the visual novel or not, and maybe community of the zero page it translated to Fortune. For me, only in fun instance when I had Japanese audio on when Polon spoke in English stuff was used. And before it I thought they are using technology which translates language to the language, but then I remembered there was a generator who didn't add the technology but still understood the language. And of course, this still continues with even different perspectives, but this time it is understandable because the player is a separate being, either from, and it shows either from a different generator's perspective or as an observer and narrator, not connected to any generator, like outside those any generator minds. Then again, this is a normal electronic stores or something like that for previous interested. After this visual then okay, then now it is understandable why also in previous entries more than chaos and chaos shalt there were different perspectives. Of course, the narrator part isn't in the player's controls. But with that, the player can't access backlog all of the time, and even the previous skinned backlog is saved in the same place session. Like a backlog is connected to AR technology. but for that reason is better connected to AR technology even for the player. Like the player is borrowing AR technology from safe mode. So yeah, even with some ups and downs from the complete package, Unknown's Code is an enjoyable experience. The complete package is in from every aspect in visual novel, like from story, visuals, dialogue and other stuff, are ups and downs. Like it didn't annoy me so much that I would drop that game or visual novel. Only so much that I needed to use a gate. Which gate was my fault. Like I forgot when the right time was to choose the right choice. But when the player already reached the point, then maybe the skip function should also stop it. When to choose the right choice. Or in action. So there is an autosave, but it doesn't save nearby this choice all of the time. Or the game autosaves under the right time for choosing to do or not. But still, that didn't impact my enjoyability of the visual novel by much. To be safe than sorry, well, actually, never mind it. It's recommended to read Unknown's Code's after you have read previous entries in the series. And with this, so for now I have finished science outdoors entries that are correctly realized in English one way or another. So now I need to wait not just for the next entry release, but also for when I will be able to get it. And with that, why I wrote that sentence like that went other. Or maybe that involves waiting for one, but most likely from committee of 0. Or also waiting for those JoJo's English versions if those will be found budget. Well, even if those will be found budget versions. Well, whichever will be first. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, like the video, subscribe and comment. See you next time.